My basic argument of this paper, if I can sort of summarize at the beginning to set the ball rolling, is that in the light of the empirical evidence, both across countries as well as in Pakistan, the evolution of service delivery functions accompanied by delegation of appropriate financial powers and decentralization of authority to take decisions and deconcentration of executive powers together as a package will lead to better accountability of results and hence improved delivery of public services to the poor and the marginalized group. I also realized that the existing patron-client relationship, which is predominant in this country, will continue to persist.
Then
the scope of including the citizens and the clients who were traditionally denied access under an M&A and MPA-centered system will be much wider under a decentralized and devolved system. And I refer to some of the empirical work which has been done by many researchers, and I quote that in this paper. And more important, the representation of the marginalized groups, such as women, peasants, and labor, in the electoral politics at the local level, enhances the chances of these groups, which have always been on the periphery, to get access to these services. And under the 2001, another innovation was the citizen participation mechanism, such as the citizen community boards and school councils can become a powerful instrument for citizen empowerment. Now, for 2 years, I worked on the National Commission for Government Reforms, which was a commission of private individuals from different walks of life, and the secretaries of cabinet establishment, finance, and we went around the whole country trying to study the federal, provincial, local government system, as also the civil services. So a lot of proposals for reforms in this, in all fairness, I must say, are attributable to the work we did during these 2 years, and the report is called the National Commission for Government Reforms. The economic growth poverty nexus, as you know better than me, has been investigated both across time and across countries over the last 5 decades. And what we can derive from this relationship of economic growth and poverty is while growth is necessary for the alleviation of poverty, it is not sufficient. And people stop at that. The latest thinking is that human development and access to social services, which are interlinked with each other, in a well-functioning governance structure, distributes the benefit of growth more equitably and lifts the people out of poverty. So this becomes the sufficient condition for economic growth to work on the poverty. Now the question then arises as to how the state is able to deliver both the human development and the access to social services across a large spectrum of the population. And in Pakistan, it has become even more necessary because of the track record where the state has been hijacked by the elitist groups for their own benefits, and the market has been rigged by the same elite group to make personal aggrandizement and personal gains. And therefore this connection, which I pointed out to you, where the equitable benefits depend on the structure of the governance and the state, becomes a moot question in this context. Now, the World Development Report of 2004 provides a conceptual framework in which we can examine this particular issue, because it's not an issue only for Pakistan, but the rest of the world. And the lessons which WDR draws on this question says that you have to strengthen the accountability between the poor people and service providers. That's the first lesson. If there is no connection between the poor people and service providers, the services do not respond to this group. Second tier is between the poor people and the government institutions. And third, between the government institutions and the service providers. You have this whole matrix. If this works, then you can be assured fairly confidently that this accountability is strengthened. The second lesson is that people choices, particularly those of poor, can be increased, can be enhanced by providing them access to other institutions than the state. It's not necessary, while the state guarantees education and to some extent health, it doesn't have to provide the services to the poor directly. It can use NGOs and other providers in the private sector and provide financing for the children of the poor families. So there is no presumption that you must have government both financing as well as directly providing the service. And third, we all keep on talking about how little the allocation to education sector is in Pakistan, 1.7, 1.8%. The WTR says that it is not the availability of the financial resources which makes the difference in the outcomes. And they gave the example that the actual amount going to the lowest tier of school or health clinic from the central government, if it starts with $100, by the time it reaches the whole hierarchy of the government functionaries and machineries and departments, it is only $10. So that leakages and the waste and the inefficiencies will be aggravated if you do not have the governance or the institutions, both of accountability as well as monitoring, to ensure that this expenditure on education and health is actually being utilized for the purpose for which it is being allocated. So just preoccupation, excessive, and the rhetoric that we should raise this to 4% or 7% is meaningless unless it is accompanied by the checks and balances, whereby the utilization of that money is assured. That is the lessons from the World Development Report. Now, we come to what is happening in Pakistan. And my main argument is that 18th Amendment is very, very helpful, is absolutely right, but it is incomplete. The next stage is the devolution from the provincial government to the local government, which has been reversed after 2008. And unless that happens, the delivery of the social services to the poor and the marginalized groups has hardly any chance of success. And I give 4 arguments that local governments are an integral part of democratic governance framework that allows greater participation by the citizens in the management and control of their day-to-day affairs. And the trade-offs and the assignment of priorities among various projects can take place in a more realistic and pragmatic manner in the local governments. And I'll give you one example. I was Secretary Planning and Development in Sindh government. And as the chairman of the Provincial Development Working Party, I used to approve 500 primary schools throughout Sindh. Not caring whether there are needs there, demand for school, there will be teachers. So what happens? The PWD department just constructs a lot of buildings. And some of the buildings are occupied as autarks of the Vaderas of that area. Although you have shown that the expenditure in education has taken place, but the actual benefits are not accrued. In 2002, I went back to my old subdivision where I started my civil service job, which was Shikarpur and Sindh. And I asked the Nazim that I want to sit in a union council meeting. And you know what they were arguing? They were arguing that there is a school for girls in village X. So the councillor from the village Y were saying we need another school here. So the village X councillor was saying, why don't we build another kilometer of road between the two villages? We have the building, we have the teachers, we don't have many girls. So your girls can come and can be sent to this school. Now how efficient resource allocation is compared to what I did as the chairman of the Social Development Working Party. So the more you empower the communities and the local councils to take the decision, this efficiency in the resource allocation will work in the savings of millions of dollars at the aggregate level. Second, empirical evidence has shown that raising taxes or charging user fees for services at local level is relatively easier. The taxpayers can see the visible benefits of such payments. They can see a school, or they can see a clinic, or they can see a road or a water supply. But if this money disappears in the central port of Islamabad or Karachi or Lahore, whose benefits are not known or visible to the community, there is a reluctance. And this is empirical study I've seen in Ghana when I was country economist there, I've seen in Bolivia, and I've seen in Pakistan. So this is a natural tendency that the closer you are and the more perceive you can the benefits, the more willing you are to take part as far as taxation and user fees concerned. Third, SPDC has done a lot of useful work, and I think Mr. Pasha deserves a lot of credit for that. They constructed a deprivation index for 80 districts of Pakistan which suffer from deprivation of basic services. There is no way anybody sitting in Karachi, Lahore, Peshawar and Quetta giving directed transfers to the districts realize the extent, the nature of the deprivation which has to be resolved at these levels. These districts have to be given better financial resources, but even better human resources. I'll give you another example. I went to a girls' school in Loralai. The science female teacher was not there. So I said, where is she? Oh, she got transferred along with her post. Ladies and gentlemen, that is remarkable, to Quetta. I come to Quetta. There are 5 science female teachers sitting there in Quetta Girls' School with 40 girls, drawing their salaries against the post in Awaram, in Loralai, in Jhalmaksi and others, because politically they were able to transfer. Now if you have a district cadre of teachers who are being given the independence to work and to be supervised, this will not happen. So the deprivation will not disappear unless you have non-uniform, non-national pay scale decision-making process at the district level. Fourth, and this is more important, and Ishrat Hussain of the World Bank has carried out a study, and according to that in 2005, the survey showed that 60% of the households stated that they are able to get their problems solved because the union councillor or Nazim is present most of the time in the union council of the district, as compared to only 10% people who said they would approach their members in the National Assembly or Provincial Assembly. When access to services is not on price, but by connections, and the connections is rationed by the political leaders, if you have better access to the politicians at the local level, you are able to get your work done as compared to those who are sitting in Islamabad or Karachi or Lahore. And this is a very important, element of the local government system. Fifth, the increased representation of the women particularly, and I'm a witness to it, that the women are more humane and they spend more allocation for education, for health, for drinking water supply, for nutrition as compared to the men. The men are more interested in giving allocations to roads, infrastructure, and hard stuff, while the women councillors were more inclined to give preference to education and health. And that is a paradigm shift. Therefore, because I'm running out of time, the whole reform package is that there must be district education boards for each district. There should be district health boards in which NGOs, private sector, and the government all work together. We need all hands on the deck. With 56% literacy rate, with less than 70% net enrollment ratios, you do not get involved in this whole exercise of government versus private sector versus NGOs. We want everybody to participate, and if the government has to provide the direct provision of services of education and health, it has to be done not at the provincial level, not at the federal level, but at the local government level, where each district has a population which is quite considerable as far as the economies of scale and scope is concerned. Therefore, decentralization, devolution, and giving resources commensurate with those responsibilities to the local government will make a lot of difference. There are a lot of examples, studies in this paper which sort of corroborate the basic thrust which I have presented to you. Thank you very much.